I'm going to be doing a sermon today on the power of two, the twin flame energy that lives within us. Okay. It's on the wild woman, the civilized woman, and why you need to let these baddies coexist to reach divine union. Okay. Those who are not delighted by learning, those who cannot be enticed into new ideas or experiences, cannot develop past the road post they rest at now. Page 136, Woman Who Run with the Wolves. I've always been open to the wonder and magic of the world since I was a child, and I find that many folks who connect with me feel the same way. I had this knowing that if I was going to live a life worth living, it would require me to think bigger and feel deeper. This quote is a really great place to start the sermon because it invites us to open our minds and our hearts to what we're going to explore. The intention here is to cultivate a safe space to understand that we may need to challenge or revisit ideologies and beliefs we've grown up with. Some of these beliefs may go far back into our lineages. And when we are doing ancestral work, subconscious work, intention is going to keep us centered. It's easy to get triggered on journeys like these. But remember, if you're feeling triggered, it can be an invitation to learn from this feeling. Ultimately, if we're going to evolve, if we are going to express our fullest self here in our current timeline, we need to give ourselves our best shot. We need to sense that there's more under the surface. Anyone close to a woman is, in fact, in the presence of two women, an outer being and an inner criatura, one who lives in the topside world and one who lives in a world not so easily seeable. 125, Woman Who Wrote Wolves. Okay, so when I was younger, I could feel this divine truth every day. I was hyper aware of the duality. As a bright, bubbly, weird, very proud, okay, about that. As a very bubbly, weird girl who would skip everywhere, hug trees, speak to flowers, help people feel seen, and navigate any room with precision. Those quirky qualities benefited me in so many ways externally. However, I was so bright I could easily blind myself and others, which scared me. It could feel so bright and blinding that a never ending darkness would appear. And that darkness was intoxicating. It showed me that there was this need to wield power and explore what it could provide for me. I could feel the energy dripping from my fingertips and my canines being activated. I wanted to destroy and run and be wild. I wanted to exist without carrying every single repercussion. I wanted to feel safe because I could protect myself by any means. Afraid to share my shadows, I internalized this need by caging myself. I believed that that wildish desire was a monster for a very long time. Now, as I've gotten older and I've lived more life, I realize it was more nuanced than just good and evil. That wolfish energy that ran through my mind, my body, and spirit was that dog in me, the space in me that only operates with a feral need to remain liberated and indulge in the mysterious. Because I was conditioned to believe that only part of me was ever needed in the world, the stark difference between the two sides felt like a void. I instantly think of the Grand Canyon and that very visible hole, and one side of me being here and the other side being here. I didn't yet realize that despite the two sides being separate, they really do connect at some point. I felt like I was never showing all of me because that would mean I was hella intense and super delicate, graceful and ruthless, wild, polished, all in one body. Over the years of teaching and holding space, I've met so many beautiful souls who describe similar experiences, especially Black women and femmes, and how ultimately they choose one side of them to hone in on and willingly starve the other. Guess which one a lot of us picked? Just guess. Take a moment. You can put it in the comments. The conditioning we have to live through is sickening. Like, yuck. The trope of being the angry Black woman or girl has been one of the weapons that has unfortunately prospered against us for generations, making us feel as if we can only be palatable and polite if we want to live. And let me be clear, that's not a figure of speech. We have been harmed, fired, abused, hung, mutilated, and murdered for less. When all you see are Black women being punished for just being, it takes so much to break through enough to reclaim every inch of who we've always been. And we will. We will get that done. If you are here with me, it's inevitable. The wild woman and the civilized woman are not opposing forces. I need you to remember this because a lot of our programming tells us otherwise. And I truly believe it's to disempower us. When you begin operating from a place of internal divorce, you are easier to manipulate, to burn out, and to pacify. These two sides are not and cannot be in competition with each other. We're going to explore the perks and limits of both sides separately in the beginning. And once we get a better understanding of that, then we will explore what happens when they work in harmony and support each other. By the time we're done, you're going to understand what your fullness actually feels like and why you were always meant to have it all. All right, let's take a breather. Go ahead, grab some water, get situated, okay? So that we can dive in to this. Do I have my water with me? I do. Have my water with me. Read more books. All right. We're going to start with the wild woman. Let's talk about my girl real quick. The Rikitura often travels in the circle far away, often appearing and then as quickly disappearing, yet always leaving behind a feeling of something surprising, original, and knowing. Page 125, Women Who Run with Wolves. Criatura. She has been inside of us the whole time. She is before the version of you that learned to be agreeable and could care less about figuring out of self-made people, what parts of self made people comfortable and refuses to hide all of who she is. The wildest side is the part that knows things in the body before the mind gets the memo. Like when you have a dream that told you something was shifting weeks before it did, or the feeling in your chest that tells you to get the fuck out of the room you just walked into. The voice that says no so clearly, so clearly and quickly that we can spend years talking ourselves out of listening to it. It is also the sensation that warms our hearts when we find our pack and love on our young. Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estés spends a significant amount of Women Who Run with the Wolves defining her, mainly to destigmatize the image that media has placed in our hearts and minds all of our lives. Someone who isn't the Eurocentric beauty standard, whose features and quirks feel alien or weird. Dr. Estes calls her the instinctual self, a force that lives in every woman, telling her to rebel, to be free, and to take no bullshit. The wildest woman is ancient, unyielding, and much more essential than many realize. And Bell Hooks in Communion and Sisters of the Yam talks about what it has specifically caused Black women to keep her buried. From the grief of it, survival logic, the way we learn early that the world had very little patience for a woman who was fully in contact with herself. Both of them speak to the way society has defined certain expressions of womanhood as undesirable, unrefined, too much, and how that definition has always been a mechanism of control instead of it helping us to reflect on divine truth. You saw her in the story of Manawi. She is the twin described as someone who could sense danger before it arrived, who protected, whose knowing ran so deep it unsettled everyone who wasn't ready for it. That discomfort speaks to the parts of us that feels too overwhelmingly out of place. It makes us realize we are rubbing against the glass ceiling built to limit us. The wild woman within wants us to be as free as we can possibly be. And that means going against the systems of sexism, capitalism, racism, patriarchy, just to name a few. I want to give some examples of what the wildish woman archetype looks like in real life. Okay. First off, we have the icon that is Grace motherfucking Jones. Okay. Grace Jones has always moved through the world in full contact with every part of herself, never once making herself more digestible for the comfort of her room. She is as shocking as she is alluring, giving people the firsthand experience of witnessing the wild woman front and center, and made her an icon and a legend for so many. Then we have Solange. She moves through the world on her own terms, follows her desires, and makes decisions that go against the grain consistently and unapologetically, and still finds success and peace on the other side of those decisions. That doesn't mean that there are not rough moments for her. I mean, we all seen the elevator situation, but you got to defend your sister. It just means that rough moments don't supersede the joy she feels in being completely herself, which is exactly why women love her so much. She's proof that you can live that way and not just survive it, but build something beautiful from it. And then we have Rihanna, pre ASAP Rocky. I said what I said, okay? Because, yeah, it's been a little different lately. But back in the day, she was unapologetically sensual. She took up full space and stood up for herself publicly without apology. If y'all remember early Twitter days, Robin was nothing to play with, okay? She was known for having a temper and being a sweetheart at the same time. Powerful and in charge in ways that women are usually condemned for, and embraced being called difficult and a diva. And she just kept going anyway and redefined her genre. She redefined what it was to be an entrepreneur, to be a Black woman of status. They each carried this wildish energy, showcasing what it looks like when she is not being managed or minimized or convinced that she is the problem. Understanding her more deeply is also why I want to bring in a framework I used to teach extensively: the three levels of femininity: your inner child, your she-go, which is your ego, and your divine higher self. Your she-go is the level most synonymous with your wild woman because she is the one interacting with the darkness within, directly and unfiltered, making things happen in your current reality with real people in real time. She gets knocked down, she gets back up. She does not play about you or the people you love. And she is the one most of us have spent our energy trying to cage because she is that girl. She is that side of us that makes a lot of people who do not love and care about us, who may want to manipulate us or use us for our power, uncomfortable. I want to be clear about something because this is where a lot of people get it twisted. She is not without cruelty, and that cruelty is not a character flaw. Sometimes you have to show your teeth. There will be moments you have to go there, and you will not lose a single night of sleep over it because you do not play about yourself. And there is a deep knowingness and peace to that. Knowing when to go there and understanding who has actually earned that version of you is part of that power. For the wild woman, she operates from her darkness, yes. And if you've been following this work, you already know that operating from your darkness is not the evil space we have been taught to fear. It is where your sense of all of who you are is, and where you learn to accept all of who you are. It's where divine wisdom actually resides. We all come from darkness. We all come from the cosmic creative womb. Okay? To deny yourself your darkness is to deny yourself your power and your ability to have authority over your life. Is a dangerous, horrendous thing to do to yourself, especially in the name of outdated beliefs and ideologies that absolutely want to suppress you. A lot of us got our first introduction to our wild selves in girlhood. She showed up as the girl making the mud pies, running around unbothered, getting called tomboy, fast grown, difficult, all the words that get handed to Black girls, specifically when they refuse to perform a version of girlhood that was never designed with them in mind. She showed up in every moment you were told to sit with your legs crossed and didn't want to be mindful of what you wore and who you wore it around when it was like, baby, this is my body, this is my clothes, I don't understand. To be societally pretty, palatable, and good. All of that was a cage. How early it started, how deliberately it was introduced tells you everything you need to know about the intentional depth suppression has always had. Patriarchy, white supremacy, white delusion, pygmy culture, all of it works together to teach us that she needs to be tamed, that she's a problem, and if you want to succeed, you better be good. Follow the rules and silence her. Imagine what would happen if instead of us using all that energy to mitigate and ignore her, we connected to her instead. We acknowledged her presence. We might realize that she isn't the only one within us influencing our lives. The civilized woman. Let's talk about our other half. The outer being lives by the light of day and is easily observed. She's often pragmatic, acculturated, and very human. Page 125, Woman Who Rode the Wolves. She's the part of you that knows how to move through the world strategically and with intention. When she is healthy and whole, heavy on the healthy and whole, she can understand the assignment, know how to walk into a room commanded, negotiate beautifully, translate herself when translation is required, without losing her sense of self in the process. She is warm and welcoming in a way that is genuine. It doesn't feel performed. She wields her power subtly. She wields her power subtly with depth and deliberate impact, utilizing her privileges, environment, and resources to get exactly what she came for, and looking incredible while she's doing it. She chooses her moments with precision because she understands that timing is its own type of power. Dr. Estés speaks to this side of the woman as a part shaped by culture and community. The self that learns the language of the world it moves through and uses that language with skill. The civilized woman is also attracted physically and energetically. She cultivates a deep need in others to care for her and her desires. Bell Hooks and Sisters of the Yam speaks to the intellectual and social self that Black women in particular have had to develop with extraordinary care. Learning how to navigate spaces that were not built for us, how to translate ourselves without losing ourselves, how to be strategic in environments that require us to be several things at once. It brings to the forefront how, under the immense pressure and lack of protection Black women receive, we still find ways to exist as fully as possible. In the story her Manoui describes her as the twin who was considered more refined, palatable, pleasant, even easier on the eyes. Our culture tends to dampen the real power in these perceptions and does more harm than good. It is crucial to know how to move through a world that does not always have space for your fullness, doing it with grace, with tenacity, with tact, and without betraying yourself in the process, and allowing that to be its own intelligence. And I say that because there has been, for as long as I've known, this war on being pretty or being beautiful, right? It's like if you think that about yourself, you're shallow, you're self-centered, maybe you're not bright, right? There are like all these stigmas attached to it that has encouraged young Black women to not care about how they look or feel when it comes to their physical appearance, but instead to deny it, ignore it, pretend that it's insignificant, and focus only on your intellect, focus only on conquering and navigating through these white suppression education systems that we've had to learn from growing up, right? And I always found it so fascinating because in my home, I grew up in a matriarchy. I was taught that how I looked was equally as important to how I thought and how I cared for people. It was not lower on the totem pole. They were neck and neck. And it was very important to cultivate a sense of self, healthy hygiene for your physical body as well as your spiritual body, and to know that your beauty and your attractiveness, your prettiness, your features, that they are of your blood, of your lineage. There's a power to that. There's magic in that, that if you deny it, or you change it because society told you it's undesirable, you are disconnecting yourself from an endless resource. So I grew up really loving my wide nose and my full lips. I I love all of my Afrocentric features. I was told as a child that it was my mother's lips or my grandmother's nose. So now when I look at myself in the mirror, I see that. I see those that came before me, and it makes me feel even more connected, right? I wrote an essay on this, and I'll probably plug it in below so you guys can check it out too. We have to stop doing that. We have to stop making it seem like that's not important. And it's not important because society says so. It's important because this is your only body. This is your temple. This is what you've been given to navigate earth with. Why not take care of it? Why not make sure you feel good? Why not make sure that when you look in the mirror, there's a sense of love and appreciation there? Whether that means, getting therapy to work through um, childhood traumas that have maybe convinced you otherwise, or, to destigmatize your mind about what size you need to be or what color your skin should be to be acceptable, and really learning and practicing, embracing all of the uniqueness of who you are, because we are absolutely divine and perfect in our own ways. Do not deny yourself physical beauty because you think that it's anti intellectual. It's not. Actually, when you really study philosophy and intellects, they are often inspired by beauty. It's just not the beauty that we're being sold. It's not the whitewashing and the $1 trillion business side of it. It's a beauty that inspires, that cultivates, that ignites within you. That is what I'm talking about. So just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Okay. So some examples. Beyonce. Again, that's what I'm saying. I have my own issues, but we're not going there because Beyonce's still Beyonce. Beyonce has always made a clear effort in polishing her narrative completely. Y'all remember when she wiped the internet from that one picture? I don't know if you were there for that, but I was there for that. Her civilized persona comes across as strategic, intentional, all while building an empire entirely on her own terms, revealing only what she chooses to reveal and never anything more, ever. And I love that for her. Then we have Zendaya. She has moved through an industry that has tried to define her since she was a teenager with quite quiet precision that has never once led her astray. She understands exactly how to show up in a room, how to own it, how to be loved and cared for and adored, and not to compromise who she is and to keep it pushing, right? Another person I would say too that I didn't mention here is Kerry Washington. She does something very similar. There is a certain persona you get of Kerry and nothing more. Doesn't mean that there's not depth or complexity within what she's showing you, because there is. She's funny, she's witty, she has this to her, you know what I mean? Like this, I don't know if it's 'cause she's a New York City girl, but she also has that. But you know nothing about her private life at all. You know exactly what she tells you, and that's it. And you love her for it, you know? Last but not least, we have Olandria. She took an entry point that most people would have underestimated, reality television, and leveraged every door has opened with an intentionality that most never saw coming. The Bama Barbie wields her privileges to access spaces that would have otherwise closed their doors to her, understand the game so thoroughly that she has been able to play it completely on her own terms and land exactly where she has always intended to be. Watching her shine and her being a deeper tone beauty has been so incredible for me. Her, Flo Milli, um, Gloria, like the beauty is outstanding. The grace is impeccable. The way she speaks, her level of relatability, the fashion, the hair, the makeup, it's just like it's all so beautifully packaged. She is a quintessential civilized woman archetype. The civilized woman can also tap into being bubbly and whimsical, leading with lightness and joy. Despite propaganda, moving from that frequency is not weakness or naivety. However, without the wild woman to harmonize with, she can lose herself in what the world does for her when she behaves in a way that is societally acceptable. is socially acceptable, excuse me. When she is constantly and consistently rewarded for being small, for not being too outspoken, that reward system becomes its own kind of trap. Society dangles that social acceptance, approval, access carrot, and she learns that manipulating who she fully is may get her further than just expressing all of herself. That external pressure is real as fuck. It is internalized to the point that she can no longer tell the difference between what she actually wants and what she has been conditioned to settle for. She becomes too agreeable, available, super focused on managing everyone else's experience that she loses that thread back to her own desires, instincts, and knowing. It's a hop, skip, jump to confusing kindness with self abandonment. For Black women, especially, being the blueprint for culture globally, I said what I said, losing yourself that way is a personal cost and a major hit for the collective. Just like her wild counterpart, she has always been there. And the question I want you to meditate on right now is, why do we keep choosing between them instead of moving through life with both of them fully available to us? I'm gonna give you a moment, drink some water, and then we'll go into the next part. I also want to share too that for the wild side, what happens when there is no civilized side, you're just really cruel and disconnected. You're cold hearted. You aren't caring for your physical body anymore. You aren't nourishing your mind or your spirit. You just are, I want to say, like rugged, like warped. I often think about a lot of our maternal figures and aunties, right? The ones that we talked about when we were younger, like they were so mean to us and things like that. What tends to happen is that life trauma happens, right? And it keeps getting stored in the body, and they learn to harden instead of having safe spaces and resources to soften because they may not have been provided with it or known that that was a possibility for them. There are many reasons as to why um, older women in particular, especially Black women, um, become cold. Okay, so I also want us to hold grace for that too. But that archetype, the mean auntie, things like that, that is what happens when the wildest side of us does not have that civilized size to provide harmony. Okay. So I want to make sure I said that because I don't think I mentioned that earlier. Okay. What makes the ladies I mentioned, AKA the wildest woman and the civilized woman, so compelling is that I'm sorry. Let me fix that. What makes the ladies I mentioned before so compelling is that you can sense that there's something underneath all that polish, something fiercer, something wilder that is informing every move they make, even when it's not visible to us. That is a civilized woman operating in conjunction with her wild self. The synergy displays what wholeness looks like from the outside. That's exactly what we're going to get into next. Okay? The cost, the container, and the union. If a woman hides one side or favors one side too much, she lives a very lopsided life, which does not give her access to her entire power. It is necessary to develop both sides. Page 125, Woman Who Wrote the Wolves. So now that we understand who both of them are, we can talk more in depth about what it actually costs you when they stay separate and what becomes available to you when they are in union. Dr. Estés writes about what happens to a woman's psyche when the instinctual self has been suppressed for too long. Eventually, it starts showing up sideways, becoming more dominant in spaces it doesn't need to be, like I talked about earlier. The lopsidedness can lead to choosing harmful relationships, environments that don't allow growth, and making decisions that ultimately create unnecessary chaos in life. It makes us center other people instead of ourselves while we constantly rebel against what is divinely for us. We may even become more vicious, self absorbed, cruel, and ignorant because we are denying half of who we are, therefore minimizing our connection to wisdom. We begin to invite in experiences that will warp our perspective on beauty and power. Anxiety with no clear source, creative blocks that feel like they came out of nowhere, dynamics that keep repeating the same cycles no matter how many times you try to do things differently. That feeling of slightly being outside your own life, watching it happen rather than actually living it. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, even though it kind of seems like it is. Estes describes in detail what happens when we begin a journey of understanding both sides of who you are. Yes, it can feel overwhelming at first. It definitely can. It can be very jarring. But we do start to notice that each side has an opposite functionality. One side might be a little warmer and kinder, while the other side is colder and meaner. And it doesn't mean that one side is better than the other either. It just means that both are these aspects that live within you purposefully. And it's up to you to find harmony so they can exist in all environments and spaces when needed. What does a woman truly desire? Women wish to have sovereignty over their own lives. Page 122, Woman Who Run with the Wolves. And Bell Hooks names what happens for us as Black women when we have been conditioned to prioritize everyone else's comforts, needs, and access to our labor and love until we lose the ability to even locate our own desire underneath all of it. On page 57 of Sisters of the Yam, she says, unless Black women begin to make our health and our well being a central priority, we cannot begin to develop lifestyles that enhance our lives. The separation shows up in how we move through the world, who we let in, what we tolerate, what we convince ourselves we do not deserve. It shows up in the body, in the work, and even in those quiet moments when everything looks fine from the outside and you still feel like something essential is missing. And what is missing is you, the fullness of you, the part of yourself you have been keeping at a distance because you were taught that choosing between your wildness and your civility was the price of being accepted, loved, and safe. And for a lot of us, for a long time, it was. But survival can never be viewed as the ceiling. It's barely the ground that we walk on. The feeling of missing something was also described as loneliness. Dr. Seth speaks to how both sides on their own are fine, yes, but there is a sense of longing and loneliness for the other that we begin to experience. I found it to be really intriguing because I think a lot of times too, when women are longing for companionship, that might be what they are longing for within themselves. But because of all the conditioning we've experienced through media and society, we think that the person or that feeling is outside of us somewhere in the world. And I think what ends up really happening is that once you find that companionship within yourself, you're able to see it in someone else. And that person amplifies what's already there, but they don't fill that void because they aren't designed to do that. It already exists within you. It is crucial that both sides are fed and that both sides are fed as equally as possible, not to inspire a need for perfection, but to ensure that both sides have proper nourishment to show up in the world in the spaces as needed. This means that you can not only focus on your civilized side, only meeting beauty standards or speaking eloquently or knowing which fork to use at a table. That is all important depending on the environment that you're in, but you also need to be able to unleash your wild side. Allow your darker urges to have a safe space for them to spill out and to be explored. Allow yourself to show your teeth and your claws, to bite back, to not take shit from people. Both of these experiences are necessary in order for you to access the fullness of your power. And I'm going to pause here and then we're going to dive into the masculine container aspect in the next video.